Good evening, Bimblers, and you join me at Colwyn Bay. It's one of these types of videos where I go and have a camp somewhere. It's about time. I was supposed to get out in May, but that didn't end up happening. So it's the 1st of June today, so we're having a little bit of a camp. The first camp of last year was on the little Orme in Llandudno, so I thought it would be fitting if the first camp of this year was on the Great Orme. So let's stop messing about. It's 5 o'clock. Let's bimble.
Things to show me, but life just keeps turning back to the way things were before. Oh, knew this time you would still see all that became attached from the way things were before. It just proves to me how it's meant to feel. We have motive, we have the time. We were meant to lead extraordinary lives. It changed with time. You still know me. We just keep facing back to the way things were before. Plainly show what we're meant to know. We have a motive, we have the time. We were meant to lead extraordinary lives. Edged over life.
Before we tackle that great big hill to get us into Llandudno, I thought we'd stop off here at Rhos-On-Sea and I'd tell you a fanciful tale. I was always taught in school that Christopher Columbus discovered America. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Christopher Columbus's real name was Cristoforo Colombo, but we call him Christopher Columbus, probably because it's easier to say. And we were taught that he was Portuguese, but he was actually born in the Republic of Genoa, which is part of Italy now. It was just the King of Portugal that set him the task of getting to India a different way. Back then, you had to go all the way down the bottom of Africa. And King Alfonso V, he thought that you could get there going in the other direction. But you couldn't, because America was in the way. Let's just forget that people discovered America via the Bering Land Bridge 15,000 to 30,000 years ago. That's where you get Native Americans from and all your Aztecs and that. People now believe that the Vikings discovered America. They discovered Newfoundland in about 1000 AD and they named it Vinland. But what if I was to tell you that maybe the Welsh discovered America in the 12th century? You've just dropped your Welsh cake, haven't you? The Welsh discovered America. Well, it sounds fanciful, but here's the evidence. It's said that Prince Madoc Owain Gwynedd sailed with 10 ships and discovered America. That's according to a poem from the 15th century. In actuality, Owain and his brother Rory took 2 ships and they made it to America and they came back to tell everyone the tale. That was in 1170. In 1171, they went back again. Apparently they discovered Alabama, and they made friends with a Native American tribe, and they never came back. Is there any evidence to support that? Well, along the banks of the Tennessee River in Mobile, Alabama, there's stone forts. They're built exactly the same as a stone fort that you can find in Snowdonia. Dulwich Elan Castle has the same design as the stone forts in Mobile, Alabama. And the Native Americans say that those stone forts were built by the white man. It doesn't stop there. The governor of Tennessee said they did an archaeological dig in 1799, and they found the remains of someone in brass armour, and on that brass armour was Welsh insignia. You mix that with accounts of a tribe of Native Americans with red hair, and rather than using the typical canoes that you associate with Native Americans, they used the coracle. It doesn't get much more Welsh than that. I've always wanted a coracle. I used to ask for a coracle every year for Christmas, and I'm still yet to get one. So you might think that there'd be a little bit of DNA that you could trace back to Wales, but unfortunately that red-headed tribe all died of the smallpox epidemic in the Victorian times, and in Victorian times they didn't have DNA testing, so I suppose we'll never know. The only other evidence that survives are some paintings done by a fella that was travelling between all these Native American tribes, and he painted some of their villages with the coracles on the roof of their houses. His name was George Catlin. Other people say that it was a story concocted by Elizabeth I. After Columbus discovered the New World, she wanted to claim it as British, so she said that the Welsh discovered it in the 12th century. But I happen to believe that the Welsh did go over there in the 12th century, and they did like it better than Wales, and they did integrate with a Native American tribe, with all those Pocahontas looking women, and they gave them all ginger hair. It's hard to believe that they didn't come back to Wales on a day like today. But let's face it, it's not usually like this, is it? It's usually a bit grey and drizzly. And speaking of the sunshine, it's not going to last all day, is it? We've got food to cook. So, let's bimble to Llandudno.
Maybe it didn't work at the time, maybe it never did. A mistake that made the distance, or a trying way to live. Maybe it's the time that you grabbed at my arms and electricity flowed from my shoulders to palms in a white hot glow, leaving white cold scars left bare and unshown just to prove they were ours. Maybe it worked, maybe it never did, maybe it never was quite like how it is. Maybe it didn't work at the time, maybe it never did. A novelty improvement left lonely as it gives. Or maybe it's the time that you closed both your eyes and you pouted your lips as you waited for mine in the soft red glow of your soft cold arms. Serotonin burnt holes through my veins, to my heart. Maybe it worked, maybe it never did.
Why is she walking so fast?
Well, Bimblers, I don't know whether this is where we're going to camp, but it's certainly where we're going to have our tea. Just out of the wind, so that you can hear what I'm saying. So what's on the menu tonight? Well, in my Gran Welsh bimble, if you've watched that, on the first night where I camped on Innis Giftan, I made cowboy beans. Hot dogs beans, with a couple of cloves of garlic in it. It was delicious. But I thought I could go one better than that and make baked bean jambalaya. Oh yes. So I've brought some ingredients. Well, I did prepare some ingredients this morning at about 8:30. I chopped some onions, some green peppers, some celery and some jalapenos up, and I put them all in a Tupperware. And then I put that in the fridge. I also prepared some herbs and spices. 2 teaspoons of paprika, 2 teaspoons of hot chili powder, some black pepper and some sea salt. And I put that in the fridge as well. And because I was dealing with my little Molly and her crying when I was about to leave, I left it in the fridge. So what we had to do is have a brief pit stop at the Morrison's in Colwyn Bay. And we availed ourselves of the salad bar. So I got some red onions and some peppers. Cost me a fortune, but we needed it. I got myself some celery sticks, which I'm going to chop up. I got myself one of these paprika things. I didn't want to buy 2, so I didn't get the hot chili powder. So it won't be as spicy as I like it. It's baked bean jambalaya, so I got some baked beans. And I went posh. I got baked beans with sausages in, because we're worth it. You can't have jambalaya without rice, so I got some Mexican style rice, so that should add a little bit of spice to the occasion. You might ask yourself, why don't you bring fresh rice and boil it on the spot? Well, I'd have to bring a hell of a lot of fuel to boil up that rice, and I'd have to bring a hell of a lot of water to wash the rice. One of these pre-packet things, it's already cooked. All I've got to do is mix it in at the end. I bought a garlic bulb full of cloves of garlic, way too much for what we need. But I did remember from home the secret ingredient, some fine Yorkshire chemicals. I decanted some Henderson's relish to slop that in as well. So how are we going to go about it? Well, as you know, I like to cook on a Trangia stove because it's a bit of a challenge. So we're going to set that up and we're going to put the frying pan on with a little bit of oil. Then we're going to add our onions and our peppers from the salad bar at Morrison's and fry them up nice. To that, we're going to chop up some of the celery and put that in. We're going to chop up a few cloves of garlic because things can never be garlicky enough for me. Then we're going to add the beans once that's all browned off. I've got quite a lot of celery sticks as well, so I think I'll have them as my starter. We're going to cook that up until it's a fine mush, and then we're going to add the rice. You've really got to separate out your rice so that it's nice rice. After I think that's all warmed through, we're going to slop in the Henderson's relish, just to add the secret ingredient, Yorkshire chemicals. Then we're going to eat it, and we're going to watch the sun go down. Seems like a nice idea, doesn't it? Et voilà!
While committed like the tides in and left before your eyes, I couldn't count the hours you keep. Hours into days, all the points had passed away until it's only once a week. You know I could have done more. You know I could have tried hard. I know I could have been here. I know I could have broke hearts. Make the plans I wish to keep in the hours before you sleep. If I'd have said goodnight once more, wishing for the time if I'd have kept one open eye onto the glowing bedroom floor. You know I could have done more. You know I could have tried hard. I know I could have been here. I know I could have broke hearts. I know I could have done more to change your mind. Could have done more to change your mind.
Good morning, Bimblers. It's rather chilly this morning. I'm sure it'll warm up as the morning goes on. It's not the smartest I've ever put the tent up, but it went rather dark after we finished our tea. So I had to park the tent at the side of some foundations for an old building. That was the flattest spot. I suppose you're wondering what these foundations are and where we camped. Let's get the tent put away and we'll have an explore, shall we? And I'll tell you all about it. Core Bimblers, it was hard work getting down here. I didn't film any of it because it was ungainly. But we've reached the WW2 Artillery School. When World War II broke out, the government were tasked with moving the artillery school from Essex, Shoebury-Ness. They needed to move it away from London and all the bombs, so they decided to put it somewhere where there wasn't anyone. So they moved it to here in Llandudno, and training started in September 1940. And they didn't just teach you how to fire weapons, they taught you how to use radar and how to use the searchlights and all that fun stuff. When they were firing the weapons, they used to raise red flags in the centre of Llandudno, or put red lights on if it was the night time. And they had to introduce quite a few bylaws, stopping you from coming down here when the red flags were flying. They also had to have a few bylaws to stop local school lads from coming down here and collecting up the bullets. You can imagine it would be fascinating, but if you were caught collecting any of the bullets, you'd be given a £5 fine. £5 was a lot of money back then. According to my big book of Bimble, they ran 14 courses here, and at the height of World War II, they had 150 officers, 115 cadets, and 450 other ranks and other personnel. On top of that, 130 women in Llandudno found their husbands, and they had 70 children, firing both barrels. By 1945 the war was over, so by 1946 this place was empty, and in the 1950s they demolished most of it. We actually camped on the foundations of one of the old buildings, but they still have these 3 bunkers that they used to use to fire off into the sea. And speaking of firing off, it's time for me to fire off back home and have a cuddle off my molly.